着だと言ったよな。熱くなるなとも言ったぞ。
今やる。ガルボムの
ルームシャンブルズ
ヘッドホー。
We're playing some Purple Luffy, Battle of the Luffys. This is actually post-starter deck here. Going to be playing some Purple Luffy with the new Wano support. Well, Wano. They're technically in Wano. It's Straw Hat Pirates, whatever. You understand here. Opponent's going to go ahead and start off with a 8k swing lead. I will happily take that one. Looking for something fun to do this turn. Likely going to play out the Zorojuron hand. I ended up going second. Don't really like going second with Purple Luffy because you've just got a really optimal aggressive curve if you go first. But I did lose the dice roll, and the Black Luffy deck chose to take me off second and instead chose to take himself off second and go first. Alright, gonna go ahead and play with Zorojuron. We're gonna ramp one just to make sure we can get to that 7 on the next turn, and we did happen to find the Luffy Taro. Luffy Taro, best new card in the deck. 7 cost, -1 Dawn. For an 8,000 power, you can play out a 5 cost or less purple Straw Hat Pirates card from your hand. Pretty neat little combo with Luffy Taro into the Sangoro, which is a 6,000 power character that if you have 8 or more Dawn, he draws a card when you attack. Honestly, the card's a sleeper. Like, that is the best card in the deck. I kind of scoffed at its ability. I was like, whatever, like they'll just remove it. But if they don't remove it, that card just draws so many cards. It is so good. Opponent's gonna go ahead and run into a Kuzan here, pretty much telling me that he likely has an answer to my Luffy Taro here. Just because I have kind of telegraphed likely that I'm setting that up, especially grabbing the Luffy Taro hand. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing 6k into life, get a 2k counter out of hand. Pass back to my turn. Good old 7 Dawn turn, baby. It is time for us to do the thing. Pretty happily sitting at 3 life here, which is pretty nice. That is one benefit of going second. Second means you only have to ramp once to be able to pull off this fun little curve. Where if you go first, you have to either ramp twice or play out a bond clay when you're on your 4 Dawn turn. We're going to go 6k at lead here. Opponent's already down to 4 life. Opponent's just going to give me a 2k out of hand, and then we're just going to go another 5k here. Electing not to ramp up to 8k, there's not really a reason, or to 8 Dawn, not really a reason to do this. I could have used that additional Dawn to swing 6k, but opponent's just going to show me a 2k anyways, so honestly it doesn't really matter. Got the same end result. I'm going to go ahead and put out the Luffy Taro. Going to -1. We're going to put out the best little combo card, and that's Sangoro here. Filleting the board. We got 2 6k beaters as well as a very aggressive 8k beater here into my opponent, going to 7 Dawn here with a Kuzan out. The scariest potential play is a Jack here. Maybe an attack with Kuzan, minusing 4 on the Luffy Taro, and then playing down Jack to just to KO my Luffy Taro. Opponent instead decides to go after Sangoro. Opponent knows the sauce. He knows the secrets. Sangoro is actually the best card on my board right now because its ability to refill my hand is going to be really good. So opponent noticing that. Funny enough, the opponent I'm playing against plays a lot of Purple Luffy, so he knew exactly what to target, right? So that was unfortunate for my side, but he's going to go ahead and looks like he's going to play exactly what I hoped he would not, and he's going to play out the Jack here. Jack's gonna rest himself, draw a card, discard a card, and then KO 3 or less. Gonna go ahead and take out my Sangoro. No free cards for me on this next turn, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to stay as healthy as possible. Typically with Purple Luffy, you kind of want to get your engine going, right? So get your Luffy Taro out, and then at that point, you just kind of want to stay high life. You know, getting those first few cards off the top of your life into hand, as well as potential continuous draw with Sangoro, can kind of keep your hand pretty hefty. And this deck does run 12 2Ks. I've noticed slowly over time a lot of decks have been shying away from the 12 2Ks, but this deck runs all 12 2Ks. All of the 2Ks are actually really great in this deck. That new I've got 3 copies in my hand right now. That's the Usohachi, I think it is. It's a 3 cost that can rest a 5 cost or less if you have 8 or more Dawn. So a great way to help you push for game through blockers. We're swinging 5k, then a 6k. Opponent's going to take that 6k swing. We actually sent the 5k into the Kuzan. I just didn't want the Kuzan to stay on the board. I'll send the simple 5k into the Kuzan first to just check my opponent. My opponent wants to give me a card for it, then I'm just going to send the 6k into it. My opponent realizing that I'm likely going to commit a few attacks to it, just opts to let it go on the first swing, which is fine. The 6k could go at life instead, which it did take a life off. I'm just going to push incredibly aggressive here. I'm sending 12k into the Jack. So Jack, if that stays on the board, Jack's just going to keep killing my things. So prioritizing getting Jack off the board. Really strong. A 12k hit into an 8k would have required at least 3 cards from my opponent's hand. That would have been two 2ks and a 1k to take it up to 13. And that pretty much gave me a bit of a read. Maybe my opponent's hand was not nearly as good as I thought it was, especially with me swinging 6k last turn and my opponent taking it as well. My opponent's going to go and slam down a Moria here. What does Moria have to find? Moria's going to get that Kuzan back, as well as likely a brand new here. And yep, pulls out a brand new. Kuzan's going to refill 1 card in hand, and then Brando's going to let you look at the top 3 and try to find a Navy card here. Kind of hoping for no whammies. Don't really want to see an Ice Age at this point. And you know what? I just continue to call it. I predicted the Jack on 7, the Ice Age off the brand new. You know, and honestly, I must be. It's like I watched these videos before. Honestly, like I haven't watched this video since I did this in person. So funny enough, yeah. So he's gonna go ahead and swing 7k because Luffy does have an 8 cost or more character on the board. So Luffy is now 6k leader going into my next turn. So my Zorojuros aren't going to be coughing 2ks out of my opponent. Now my opponent can easily just counter with a 1k, which is a little annoying here. But alas, we are up to our 10 Don. We have a few plays in hand. We have the 9 cost Mom. We've got the 9 cost Kaido. We also have a potential play to play out the Usohachi to rest the Kuzan. It just depends how much I want that Kuzan to be dead here. If I do play out the Kaido, I am kind of taking myself way off my amount of Don, right? It'll take me down to 5 Don, and then on my next turn, it'll take me up to 7. And I typically like to say pretty hefty, because that 7 Don means that I'm not going to be meeting a lot of the thresholds of a lot of these new Straw Hat Crew type cards, like Nami and Usohachi. They both require you have 8 or more Don to do their effects. We're just going to go ahead and just send some more attacks in without attaching into Don. 6, 6, 8. And it looks like we are just going to go ahead and play the 9 down. I'm going to play the Big Mom instead. Big Mom is a lot safer of a play here. I usually like to play Kaido when I'm going for game, and this is not a turn I was going to go for game because Kaido does set you back so many down. We're going to go discard a card from hand. I'm going to elect to discard the Usohachi. I do have a nice collection of 2Ks, and we're going to put that Kuzan on the bottom of my opponent's life, while also gaining a nice little life. Hand's looking pretty good. Got a Kaido to finish off next turn. Opponent maybe not feeling so hot here, as likely he's going to have to commit some resources if he wants to attack into the Luffy Taro to take the Luffy Taro out. Though, honestly, Luffy Taro, it's a wall. People don't typically like to attack into it just because you have so many 2Ks potentially in hand that you'll just counter out of it to save him. Luffy Taro is just a must-have threat. Every turn swinging with Luffy Taro, it immediately requires at least 2 2Ks out of your opponent's hand, if not up to 3 cards, which can be pretty scary for your opponent's hand size. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing a 9k into my Zorojuro here. I'm going to elect to save the Zorojuro using a few 2Ks from my hand because I want to try to push for game next turn, potentially. Just depends on what my opponent does. I did see a Rebecca fall into the yard off the brand new, so if my opponent does have a second Gecko Moria, likely they're going to end up having a blocker as well. Going to go ahead and Ice Age on the Lin. Going to take it down to a 4 cost here. See what my opponent's going to potentially do. If they do play the Moria, they could, I'm not sure what they could grab off of that. And they're going to just play a Sanji. Sanji's going to allow them to KO my Lin, which takes me a little bit further away from lethal at this specific turn because my opponent does still have quite the grip. I think he's got at least 6 to 7 cards in hand. Opponent's just going to play out a Hina. Hina, a new card from starter deck, the Smoker starter deck, allowing my opponent to bottom deck the Ice Age to the bottom of his deck and add 1 Don to a leader or character, which allows him to proc Luffy's ability for free, which is pretty cool. Luffy's going to be a 7k. 7k is going to be swinging into Zorojuro again. I've got so many 2Ks in hand, I'm just going to go ahead and cough up another 2K. I already saved it earlier this turn. Might as well commit some resources to saving it again. That's usually my philosophy. If you are attempting to save a character, you better save that character. You better continue to save that character, because if you decide to let that character die later in the turn, through information on board, it really feels bad, right? So if with me knowing a potentially another 7k coming in, I definitely need to commit another 2k. Since I already gave 2 2ks towards that Zorojuro earlier in the turn here. Now we're kind of thinking, my opponent is a 6k leader, so we're going to have to swing 6s. Opponent's just going to give me a 1k. It's going to be free 1k city for my opponent here, as I don't want to commit too much Dawn. You can see I'm just holding out 9 Dawn here. I do have a Magellan, nice little sleeper tech in this deck. If you see my deck tech, you'll notice I'm not running Magellans in the deck tech. I decided to slide those in. I took out the 7-cost kids. I took out the 3 7-cost kids for 3 Magellans, just trying it out. I'm not sure if 7-cost kid is the card I want to replace, but when I'm building decks, I don't typically want to take out counter to put in non-counter, so I'll typically swap out non-counter for non-counter cards. Magellan, pretty great. Magellan can take your opponent off a curve. In this specific situation, it's great at getting out of my hand off the Nami effect. Nami's going to let me trash 1 card and discard, or trash 1 card and draw 2 cards. So it works out well in this specific situation, but typically if I could play Magellan on curve, it's pretty backbreaking to my opponent, as it could completely take them off a Gecko turn, especially against black decks. We're just going to swing 7k, make my opponent have 2ks at this point. Opponent shows me 1 2k, ends up taking the other life here. And I am in a little bit of a situation here. I could play out the Usohachi to rest the Sanji and then swing 8k into it, requiring a 2k and a 1k to try to clear some of my opponent's board. I'm a little afraid of the clapback, just because my resources are getting pretty low. I still am at 3 life though, so not too afraid at this point. I think what we're going to do instead is we're going to go ahead and just swing 11. So we're going to check my opponent's hand. My opponent has 5 cards in hand. My opponent instantly removes it. He doesn't even think about it. So that tells me right there that my opponent's hand maybe isn't the best. Maybe my opponent might be building a house with the amount of bricks in his hand at this point. So we're going to see what my opponent ends up doing here. If he's got bricks in hand, then likely he's got a Gecko Morio in hand. So I definitely could expect a Gecko Morio this turn, which would allow him to fill up the board a little more. At least 3 potential attackers. The brand new could take a few Dawn to swing in. Likely at this point, my opponent's going to be staring at my board. They're going to be trying to go for those Zoro Joros. Going to go ahead and play out the Gecko Moria. Gecko Moria is definitely going to get back that Rebecca. Don't know why I wouldn't. And then see what else he potentially grabs. I do call out, hey, you got to get rid of something. There are 6 characters on that board. He gets rid of the brand new to make up for that. Toy Soldier, fun little tech. Toy Soldier, I think you activate him and he minuses 3 something. Opponent's looking for what to grab off the Rebecca. Going to go ahead and grab the 2k counter, and then decides not to put anything into play off of Rebecca, as it wouldn't really make sense for them to bring out the Toy Soldier and then just not do anything with it, and then just replace it. So opponent's instead going to activate Hina. Going to use that effect to put 1 Dawn on leader. So now leader is going to be 6k going into my next turn, and I think this next turn I'm definitely going to set up for a potential Kaido play. Kaido could come down and immediately slap the Rebecca. Instead we're going to get an 8k. The 8k is going to be going into something here. I could absolutely save that Zoro Joro, and I might just do it. It does represent another swing, or actually we're just going to block. Forgot I had a blocker. Now there's going to be another 7k swing going in. I'm just going to go ahead and use an Usohachi to clear that up. Nice little card, Nami. Nice little blocker, especially with red purple log on. We don't have to worry about that getting bottom decked, though in black matchups you do have to worry about it potentially getting KO'd, and then against LOL they could just bounce it. So with that in mind, going back to me, opponents at 1 life. Opponents, I saw 2k to go to hand. That was about it. Opponent did not give me a lot of confidence that he had a lot of 2Ks in hand at this point. So we're just going to go ahead and play out the Kaido. Kaido's going to come in, -5, going to KO that Rebecca. And then I think what we're going to do here is we're just going to swing we're going to swing a 7k here first. And so I'm setting up this way. I'm going to leave the leader swing for last. I could just activate my leader's ability to get a Dawn back and then attach it to my leader to be able to threaten my opponent. We're just going to send a 7k first, get a 2k out of him, send a 6k, so it gets another 2k out of him. And now we're kind of in the situation where like I could push one of those at Sanji, and then I'd pretty much confirm that I'm not like in a very suspicious spot. I do have a few bricks in my hand. I had 2 Kaidos. Now I'm down to 1 Kaido in hand and a 1k counter or something. And now we're thinking. We got the 8k lead. Opponent immediately took it. I'm just like, all right. Like, what are the odds that my opponent just like has it? And yeah, opponent had a bunch of bricks, was building a house. I kind of inferred that from the ways he was just letting things go towards the late of the game. But that's the game here. Purple Luffy takes out Black Luffy. And yeah, if you like this type of gameplay, definitely subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.